research, humanity had spent nearly 3 centuries expanding beyond Earth. What began as fragile colonies on Mars and Titan had become a network of hundreds of worlds connected by trade routes stretching across the Orion Arm. Yet despite its growth, humanity remained largely unnoticed by the great powers of the galaxy. Ancient empires ruled thousands of systems, commanded fleets larger than entire human populations, and controlled technologies that seemed almost magical. Among them stood the Karthan Dominion, the most feared empire ever known. For over 5,000 years, the Dominion had conquered civilization after civilization. Entire species disappeared from history after refusing to kneel before Karthan rule. Their fleets darkened the skies of countless worlds, and their banners became symbols of inevitable defeat. No one resisted the Dominion for long. No one survived doing so. The Karthans were not driven by hatred or ideology. They were driven by hunger. Their empire required enormous quantities of rare resources to maintain its vast military machine. As their territory expanded, the resources they depended upon became increasingly scarce. Their scientists began searching distant regions of the galaxy for new deposits of exotic minerals and energy-rich compounds. Eventually, their surveys detected something remarkable within human-controlled space. Beneath the oceans of Earth and hidden deep within the crusts of nearby colonies were resources so abundant that they could fuel the Dominion's expansion for another 1,000 years. To the Karthans, humanity appeared insignificant. Their intelligence, reports described humans as politically divided, technologically behind, and militarily weak compared to galactic standards. The conclusion seemed obvious. Earth would be conquered quickly. Its resources would belong to the Dominion. The decision was approved by Emperor Varos himself. Across thousands of systems, the announcement was celebrated. The conquest of humanity was expected to be one of the easiest campaigns in recent history. Massive shipyards accelerated production. Generals competed for the honor of leading the invasion. News networks broadcast simulations showing Earth surrendering within weeks. Some analysts even predicted the campaign would conclude before many. Karthan citizens learned it had begun. Humanity was considered a footnote in galactic affairs, a small civilization occupying territory it did not deserve. The Dominion's leaders never considered the possibility that their intelligence reports might be incomplete. When the invasion fleet finally departed, it consisted of nearly 20,000 warships, planet crackers, carrier groups, troop transports, and support vessels stretched across space like an endless river of steel. Entire sectors trembled at the sight of the armada crossing their borders. Civilizations that had once resisted the Dominion watched with sympathy for humanity. They knew what was coming. They had experienced it themselves. Many expected Earth to vanish from the map of the galaxy within months. The first warning arrived when Dominion scouts entered the Sol system. Instead of panic, they encountered silence. Human warships were present, but they seemed oddly restrained. The scouts reported defensive formations around key planets and orbital stations. Yet the fleet numbers appeared far too small to challenge the invasion force. Admiral Korvac, commander of the campaign, interpreted the data as proof that humanity understood the hopelessness of resistance. He ordered his fleet forward without hesitation. In his view, the campaign was already won. What Korvac did not know was that humanity had spent decades preparing for a war exactly like this one. Human historians remembered every invasion, every conflict, and every near-extinction event from their past. Their leaders understood a simple truth that many galactic civilizations had forgotten. Peace was temporary. Sooner or later, someone stronger would arrive. Human governments argued constantly about economics, politics, and territory. But on one issue they agreed completely. If a superior enemy ever threatened Earth, humanity would fight with everything it possessed. As Dominion fleets advanced toward Earth, millions of civilian ships quietly disappeared from commercial routes. Factories shifted from consumer production to military output. Mining colonies increased extraction around the clock. Artificial intelligences optimized logistics networks with ruthless efficiency. Hidden shipyards that had existed only in classified records began launching warships faster than intelligence estimates considered possible. Entire sections of humanity's military infrastructure activated simultaneously. The transformation was so rapid that even many human citizens did not fully understand what was happening. The first major battle occurred near Jupiter. Admiral Korvac expected a brief engagement. Instead, his Vanguard fleet encountered layered defensive systems unlike anything the Dominion had previously seen. Thousands of autonomous drones emerged from hidden locations among the moons. Missile platforms concealed inside asteroids opened fire. Human warships executed maneuvers that seemed reckless until their purpose became clear. They were deliberately drawing Dominion vessels into overlapping kill zones. Within hours, hundreds of Karthan ships had been destroyed. Korvac remained confident. Losses were expected in any military operation. The Dominion possessed overwhelming numerical superiority. He ordered additional forces forward and continued the advance. Yet every step deeper into the Sol system became more expensive. Human defenses appeared where no defenses should exist. Supply lines were ambushed by stealth vessels. Communications experienced mysterious disruptions. Fuel depots exploded without warning. Entire task forces vanished while traveling between engagement zones. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of civilizations, but most enemies followed predictable doctrines. Human commanders did not. They abandoned positions without warning, only to launch devastating counterattacks elsewhere. They used civilian infrastructure as military support networks. Merchant ships became reconnaissance vessels. Mining equipment became weapons platforms. Colonists volunteered for dangerous missions with astonishing enthusiasm. The Karthans struggled to understand why humans continued fighting despite impossible odds. The answer was simple. Humans did not view the war as a military campaign. They viewed it as survival. Weeks turned into months. Casualties mounted. Instead of surrendering, humanity became more dangerous. Every Dominion victory seemed to create new problems. Conquered colonies launched insurgencies. Occupied worlds sabotaged extraction operations. Human engineers developed new weapons at extraordinary speed. Artificial intelligence systems analyzed combat data in real time and adapted tactics faster than Dominion officers could respond. Technologies considered experimental before the invasion were suddenly deployed across active battlefields. News of the campaign began spreading throughout the galaxy. At first, many dismissed reports of Dominion losses as exaggerations. Then evidence became impossible to ignore. Entire fleets were disappearing. Resource expenditures exceeded projections by staggering margins. Casualty lists grew longer each day. Independent observers started asking uncomfortable questions. How could a supposedly primitive civilization inflict such damage on the most feared empire in history? Emperor Veyros demanded results. Under pressure, Admiral Korvac launched a direct assault on Earth itself. Thousands of warships converged on the planet. The battle that followed became one of the most studied military engagements in galactic history. Human defenses fought with desperate determination. Orbital stations continued firing even while falling apart. Civilian volunteers operated damaged systems. Pilots launched missions they knew were suicidal. Every kilometer of space above Earth became a battlefield. Then humanity revealed a secret it had spent decades hiding. Buried within the asteroid belt were enormous manufacturing complexes unknown to Dominion intelligence. During the invasion, these facilities had been producing warships continuously. As the battle for Earth reached its peak, thousands of fresh vessels emerged simultaneously. New fleets entered combat from unexpected directions. Dominion commanders suddenly found themselves surrounded. Numerical superiority vanished almost overnight. The battle lasted 6 days. When it ended, the remains of the invasion fleet drifted through orbit as twisted wreckage. Thousands of Dominion ships had been destroyed. Countless others surrendered. Admiral Korvac himself was captured after his flagship lost power and drifted into human-controlled space. Across the galaxy, reactions ranged from disbelief to shock. The impossible had happened. The Dominion had lost the Battle of Earth. Most empires would have sought peace after such a disaster. The Dominion doubled down instead. Humiliated by defeat, Emperor Varos ordered total war. Every available military asset was redirected toward human space. Massive conscription programs expanded fleet numbers. Economic priorities shifted entirely toward victory. The Emperor believed overwhelming force could still crush humanity. If Earth could not be conquered through conventional means, then it would be annihilated. Unfortunately for the Dominion, the war had already changed. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. For centuries, smaller civilizations had suffered under Dominion rule. Many had accepted their fate because resistance seemed futile. Earth's victory proved otherwise. One by one, oppressed species began joining the conflict. Intelligence networks shared information. Resistance groups coordinated attacks. Supply convoys disappeared across Dominion territory. Rebellions erupted on occupied worlds. Entire sectors descended into chaos. The Dominion suddenly faced enemies on every front. Human diplomats worked tirelessly to build alliances. Human engineers shared technology. Human commanders coordinated operations with species that had previously distrusted one another. What emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. A coalition united not by conquest, but by survival. As the war expanded, the Dominion's greatest weakness became increasingly obvious. Their empire had grown too large. Maintaining control required enormous resources. Every rebellion demanded troops. Every lost fleet required replacements. Every disrupted supply line created shortages elsewhere. The system that had enabled centuries of conquest now threatened to collapse under its own weight. Meanwhile, humanity adapted faster than ever. New warships entered service monthly. Advanced artificial intelligences optimized production. Scientific breakthroughs accelerated. Human soldiers gained combat experience at unprecedented rates. Each year of war made humanity stronger while making the Dominion weaker. The turning point arrived during the siege of Zarian Prime, one of the Dominion's most important industrial worlds. Coalition forces launched a coordinated assault involving dozens of species. The battle lasted nearly 3 months. When it ended, the planet's shipyards were destroyed, its military infrastructure crippled, and its population openly revolting against imperial authorities. The loss sent shockwaves through the Dominion. For the first time in 5,000 years, citizens began questioning whether victory was possible. Economic systems faltered. Food shortages spread. Military recruitment declined. Provincial governors ignored orders from the capital. Entire regions effectively declared independence. The empire that had once seemed eternal began fracturing from within. Humanity exploited every weakness. Rather than seeking quick victories, coalition commanders targeted infrastructure, logistics, and communications. They understood that destroying armies mattered less than destroying the system supporting those armies. Every successful operation increased pressure on the Dominion. Every month pushed the empire closer to collapse. Years later, coalition fleets reached the heart of imperial territory. The final campaign was surprisingly brief. Exhausted by war and crippled by internal rebellion, the Dominion could no longer defend itself effectively. Worlds surrendered without resistance. Garrisons laid down their weapons. Entire fleets defected. Eventually, coalition forces arrived above the imperial capital. The same world from which countless conquest orders had once been issued now faced occupation. Emperor Varos refused surrender until the very end. Historical records claim he stood inside the throne chamber watching reports of collapsing defenses while insisting victory remained possible. When coalition troops entered the palace, they found him still issuing commands to fleets that no longer existed. The Dominion officially ceased to exist 3 days later. Across the galaxy, celebrations erupted. Species that had lived under fear for generations finally experienced freedom. Borders were redrawn, new governments emerged, trade routes reopened. Historians immediately began debating how such a powerful empire had fallen so completely. The answer, though complex, could be summarized in a single sentence. They invaded Earth for resources. They believed humanity would surrender. Instead, They awakened a civilization that refused to lose, inspired a galaxy to resist, united former enemies into allies, and triggered the collapse of the greatest empire in recorded history. Centuries later, students across thousands of worlds would study the war and marvel at the decision that started it all. Among military academies, political institutions, and historical archives, one conclusion remained universally accepted. The Karthan Dominion's invasion of Earth was not merely a strategic mistake, it was the worst decision in galactic history.